I started reading Fabric of Reality 2 years ago, but I failed. It was too hard. It made my brain hurt. But I found a process, and it's changed how I'm understanding it. So I'm reading the book, the paper version in the morning. Then at work, I'm listening to the Audible version. And just after, I'm listening to Brett Hall episodes about it. Brett Hall, thank you so much. So much. Now I'm slowly starting to understand it, and I'm enjoying it. So again, Brett Hall, thank you. So reading the book and then listening to the book, I found it so powerful. And am I alone? I want the book, the paper version, the ebook version, and the audio version as one price, to bundle everything together.
Benoit, that's almost exactly how I did it. I read both The Beginning of Infinity and The Fabric of Reality, and then chapter by chapter, I also listened to them, and then chapter by chapter, I also listened to the corresponding Brett Hall Theory of Knowledge Talkcast episode. So almost identical, even though I think Deutsch is a clear thinker and a somewhat clear writer. He writes for other scientists and philosophers. He is extremely dense. His mind interconnects things that most of us are just encountering for the first time. And so having exposure through multiple channels is really important.
In the back of Fabric of Reality, they have the suggested reading. I started reading Gödel Bach, and it was a pleasant surprise just because not only was it showing like high-level math concepts, but it was also showing a lot of computer science topics, which for me, learning computer science, and then for that being a big component in the Fabric of Reality, it was a very pleasant surprise. And also in the book, he interplays how biology and computers are related, or computer systems. He gives a very big breakdown into DNA and how it replicates, and how it's relevant to like computer systems and even mathematics. And here's another good page. But it's like 100 pages of just how it all interweaves together. Douglas Hofstadter is slowly becoming one of my favorite authors. His writing is very unique. I've never seen anyone write a book like his after reading Gödel Bach. And it's great that also David Deutsch recommends at least 3 of his books in his suggested readings.
Okay, this is not really reading related. I mean, it is, but like, instead of reading, I've actually been just using ChatGPT to help teach me concepts that I don't have the vocabulary to understand. Like, for example, I'll just copy and paste an entire scientific paper about some dense nutrition or physiological, like health related topic. And I'll ask ChatGPT to explain it to me like I'm 12 years old, and I'll read it through that interface with words that I comprehend. I think this is Sal Khan's vision for the future of how chatbots can integrate into education. And I find it like super inspiring. I think reading is very, it's like one way, it's like the internet web through, it's like read only. But then with chatbots, it's like you have a private tutor on demand at your fingertips where you can synthesize like any information through conversation, which is more interactive and more engaging. And what I'm extremely excited about is for when we have a plugin where you can just take like any Kindle book or textbook and ask it to speak to you in a language that you understand. And then you can read it in vocabulary that you understand. Because a lot of the problem with like why we can't get into these topics, why I don't understand physics, is because it's an entirely different language. Imagine if you took a Shakespeare book and you could have it as like a sliding scale for what grade level vocabulary it would use. Or for like university, you could have, if you had like an old physics professor who you just don't understand, and you could take his writings and ask it to be translated into something as simple as what Richard Feynman could put out.
I think there was some study about how reading or listening to a book in the author's voice, because they actually emphasize what they meant to emphasize, works a lot better than just any other audiobook narrator. Does anybody know anything about that?
I think that works if you're familiar with their work or how they talk and how they convey words. Like the certain way they say stuff, you just have a way of understanding how they mean better.
No, you're not alone. One thing I like to do, I mean, it gets expensive, but if I'm, especially with very dense nonfiction books, I will buy the audiobook version and I will listen to that on double speed while I'm driving, and I might skip around chapters that aren't interesting. And that just gives me a general sort of sense of what information is in the book and whether it's actually well written. And then if I find that it's actually a good book that I really want to dig deep into and highlight and extract notes from, then I'll buy a digital copy of the book and I'll highlight passages and sync them over through Readwise into Rome Research, and then that's where I'll take notes. I mean, I say that I do that, but I'm not super disciplined about it. Yeah, I agree with this, especially, I mean, I don't think this applies to fiction, but it does to nonfiction. I often think that nonfiction books, it does often feel like an outdated format. And I think that we are, we're sort of culturally attached to the idea of a book and we sort of romanticize it. But often when I'm reading a nonfiction book, I just think, well, this would be so much better if it was a kind of, a wiki or something where I could read, but then jump around to sort of contextualize information and then come back. And it's, that's what you do when you're, on the internet. I can, absorb information and learn things so much faster when I'm, searching for information on the internet, because I can jump around through links to get context and stuff as I'm reading, but I can't very easily do that with a book. Yeah, I used to think this way about books, but now I just think that I don't really think of books as property. I just think that the money that I have to pay to acquire them is just kind of like a tax. And the value of the book is really just the sequence of the words that's inside it. It's not actually the paper or the physical manifestation of that object. It's just the activation of thoughts in your head that, is created by the sequence of words. And the reason I like giving away books is the same reason I like sharing, I'm sharing this, this comment, because I think that one of the most valuable things that we can do as humans is to share our thoughts, because, and to share other people's thoughts, that we've encountered. And I think that, the act of sharing a book is just sort of sharing a collection of thoughts that you value with somebody else you think might value it. And the thing is that reading a book can really change your life. I mean, I heard somebody else say this in this conversation, that a single sentence can completely change your perspective. I mean, that happened today. Somebody said a single sentence to me and it changed my complete perspective on something. So whenever I give somebody a book, I feel like that if there's just a possibility there that by giving them this collection of words that, it could lead to a complete, meaningful change for them, then yeah, of course, I'm going to give them my books. I do a similar thing with ChatGPT, but what I do is I ask ChatGPT to just decide which terms to explain. So I paste a section of a research paper, and then I tell it to, whenever it encounters an abstract term that is unusual, as in it's very domain specific, I instruct it to write an explanation of that term underneath. So I can basically read the paper, but then I have all these notes that are sort of like annotations that have been added to the paper. And another thing that I do is I give it an example of how I structure my notes. So I use Rome Research, which is like, there's other apps that do the same thing, like Obsidian, and it makes your notes into a wiki style format where you can link keywords, and you can indent meaningful related information under other bits of related information, and it all links it up. And ChatGPT does a pretty good job of structuring information in this way, and then you can just copy paste those notes. So this is, I think it's hard to overstate how much of a big deal this is. I think it's truly remarkable. Just getting access to a tool that can, I think what's so incredible about it is that how empowering, psychologically empowering it is to have essentially a personal tutor that can help you understand anything. Because now that I have access to this, I feel that almost any topic is suddenly approachable to me. There's things that I thought that I would never be able to understand, but now with this helper, I feel like maybe I can actually, approach these things. Maybe I could read about quantum physics and begin to understand it.